Good morning. It's Tuesday, September 26th, 2023. I'm Melissa. This is my video diary. Mm. So, yesterday I finished the novel I've been working on. First draft. Um, and I just need to do some edits. I'm not even done editing the other one I wrote. But this one's different than all the other books I've written. It is. Omar did not like the ending. I read the book out because I read the book out loud. I read the books out loud to him when I'm writing. As I write them, he gets to hear them. He did not like the ending. He should have heard the sound. He went with the sound at the end, something like that. What'd you think? That's what he's like. Who's gonna want to read that? He didn't like the ending. No, the character that he really disliked, walked away with the bag at the end, right, so to speak, and it upset him. It upset him. But it's realistic, right? I don't write fantasies. I don't write fairy tales. Part of what I try to do when I'm writing is realistic portraiture, right? Realistic portraiture of humanity and culture. And so this novel takes place somewhere on the coast here in California, somewhere from between the Central Coast and the Bay, right? I never um, identify the exact location of the town. And that was intentional because I wanted to relate to the geographic area, right? There's mention of places, right? Of towns, cities, and stuff, other places, but none of the book takes place in those places. It's just like, oh, so and so's mom had a house here, or had a, whatever kind of thing, but never definitively identify the town or the city or the municipality where this takes place. And none of the restaurants or anything are real places, right? It's not like I've used names of popular places anywhere, so you can't say, oh, that's here, that's there, right? It's kind of like the places are all inspired by or based on restaurants and places or venues that are all over the Bay Area. It's like, oh, that kind of reminds me of this place, that kind of reminds me of that place, kind of thing. But I haven't used you know names of actual places or anything like I have in some other books, right? um yeah, yeah, so I tried to stay true to human nature. And there's never really anything. The other day I was talking about, oh, something's got to happen. Well, I kind of have like this anticlimax that happens, right? Um, because for there to be something big that happened, it was going to be a little too. I needed something more subtle. I needed change that was more subtle, and I wanted to talk about human condition in that the psychology of um, self preservation. And how do you how do humans how do we in this culture in particular um, insulate ourselves from rejection or harm or acceptance? Because yeah, you even have to insulate yourself from acceptance sometimes. It's like, oh, maybe it's a group you don't want to be part of. um, and self-acceptance, it just human condition. Mm, yeah. Sometimes people that you feel bad for, you shouldn't. And sometimes people that have disdain for, have really trying aspects of their lives that are just, wow, you know? So I wanted to explore that too, have characters that were that had some complexity. It's like, oh, this person like is really aggravating and nobody likes him. Um, but he has these parts, these aspects to his life that have been out of his control, right? Um, that make him um relatable or I don't want to use the word pitiable, but sympathetic. You become sympathetic towards the person, towards a character, because you know these other things. There's a depth to the character, and say, oh, that's where that came from, and then it's like, oh, these things that are annoying, maybe those are actually strengths, or his coping mechanism, in the face of these other things. This is how this person is. Oh, may seem very cavalier, but that facade of being cavalier is really um, about acceptance a a horrible situation, right? So, Omar was not happy with the ending. I'm pleased with the ending, you know? I'm pleased with the ending 'cause, it's a little unexpected and, you're kinda left feeling like, "Ugh, that's how it always goes. Isn't that how it goes? That's how it goes. Ugh." You know? Isn't that the damn truth? Like that's kinda how I walk away from the end of the book, and there's something that's satisfying about that, to be able to commiserate over, um, uncomfortable realities, social and cultural realities. So, yeah. Omar always wants there to be some magical happy ending. The characters he likes get everything they want. That's just not the way life is, and I'm not writing rom-coms, right? Some of the stuff I've written has been funny, and there are funny aspects to it, but, I'm not writing outright comedy. I'm also not writing outright drama. Um, some of the books I've written have been thriller and or crime related kind of things. Um, but all of them have a distinct, psychological, angle where I really try to psychologically flesh out characters. Um, Not just they're not they're round people, right? They're both flawed and perfect in some way, right? Yeah. So there's that. And one of the paintings from the series I'm working on right now, I used as the cover art for the book. Now, this that piece has nothing to do at all with this book other than I used it to illustrate this book, but, like, that painting, the story behind that painting, the dream, has nothing to do with any of these characters. Yeah, but it fit well with the book. Yeah, and who knows, maybe I'll use other images, other of these paintings for book covers in the future if I write more, which I probably will. It's interesting, I've written 7 novels now. Yeah, fairly prolific, huh? In just a few years like that? You'd think I'd be able to find a publisher. You'd think I'd be able to find a publisher. It's kinda sought after, right? Somebody who can put out books, and all of my books are unique and, um, they have similar style because they're written by me, but they're and similar types of genre, um, but they're not the same story over and over again. Like some people I know this woman who's published, and her books are all the same. All of the books I've read of hers, I've read like 5 of her books, and it's like the same things happen in all of them. The characters are all just have different names or whatever, but it's the same goddamn story. And it's just like, all right, whatever. Comes a point when it's just totally masturbatory, and I'd say after the third book. It's like, yeah, okay, I get it. Beating that dead horse, but whatever, whatever, right? Yeah. So there's that, and I laid out the grid yesterday for the next painting, and I'm probably going to lay out the composition, the drawing, do the under drawing today, perhaps. I'm not going to actually start the paintings. I want to do the value scales. I want to do the value scales first. Yeah, I do. Although who knows? Maybe I'll save those two small canvases for something else some other time and just get into the painting. Maybe I do just want to just get into the painting without doing those value scales. I don't know. Maybe I'm feeling lazy. Maybe I'm feeling lazy and I don't want to do value scales, or maybe I just don't want to waste pigment. Right, because pigment's so hard to get these days. It is. It is. Yeah. My back. I got something pinched again. I was carrying heavy things yesterday. I felt when I did it. I felt when I did it. I was carrying heavy things, and I felt something get pinched. Then I have this jewelry that I'm working on. I cleared the table. I had it all laid out on the table yesterday. I could have just left it laid out on the table because nobody came in for anything. Um, but I cleared the table and I packaged stuff up so that it's all separated and everything. So maybe I'll get to work on some of that today. Yeah, maybe I'll work on some of that today. Yeah, I'll do some assembly line on that. Bang, 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 bang some stuff out. I got all the ear hooks for the earrings done and tumbled, and they're all nice and shiny in their little dish. Yeah. And once I get all that jewelry done, then I'll have to make packaging for it too, huh? Yeah. Yeah. Things I'm thinking about. Mm. Well, I'm glad the novel's done. Wasn't expecting to write a novel. No, I wasn't. I wasn't expecting to write another novel, but I did. It's like, oh, just happens. Oh, what did that one take? What, like 2 weeks for me to write? 3 weeks? Some people like, oh, it takes me years to write a novel. Does it? I don't understand. Why? Why does it take so long? It takes so long for you to write something. Hmm? I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. Last night for dinner, last night for dinner, I made a salad. So it was spinach salad. So I made when I came home from the market the other day, I made a bunch of stuffs to for making stuff, right? So barbecued some peppers and packed them in oil for Omar to have with his bean sandwiches because they needed a little oomph. They needed a little. I needed a little kick, so I got a bunch of serrano peppers and we charred them a little bit, and then I seasoned some oil and packed them in the oil. So there's those I made, and then I got a shit ton of Scotch bonnets, and I'm pickling those. So those will be ready for throwing into stuff, either you know raw or whatever, or cooked or whatever. But there are a lot of them, so they won't rot. So they'll be preserved. So those will be ready in a couple weeks. They'll take 2 weeks because I didn't use any heat. They're just being brined. Um, so there's those, and then I made pesto. So we're gonna be having the pesto and stuff. And last night I made a salad dressing, spinach salad with shallots, and then pesto dressing, pesto and some mayo. And I have this vinegar that I made, this herbed vinegar that I made with herbs from the yard, thyme and lemon balm and oregano and bay laurel. So that finished up the other day, and I filtered it, and then I used that. I'm using that to in the brine for the Scotch bonnets, and then I have some left over, and I'm using that and making dressings and stuff. And so I made the dressing to go with that salad last night, and then we have mozzarella, fresh mozzarella balls, and tomatoes and blackberries, and then tempeh bacon. So it was kind of like a spinach bacon salad. It was a combination of a caprese and a spinach salad. So it was like spinach caprese. And then on Sunday I baked a loaf of rye bread, almost entirely rye. So it's a really dense loaf, right? It's like really, really hearty. Um, Low glycemic index, high fiber. So it has I'd say it's two thirds rye flour, and then 2/9 2/9 all-purpose, and 1/9 spelt. And so I use the all-purpose because that gives you a better rise, right? Um, and I use the spelt for the silkiness because I wanted it to be silky. I didn't want it to be like grainy. And then it's seeded, it has caraway in it. And it's real nice. It's a real nice loaf of bread. And tonight I'm going to make a pot of mushroom barley soup, and that'll be really, really good with that rye bread. hmm Make rye bread, some rye crostini to go with the mushroom soup, and I have some Parmesan cheese down there. Sprinkle, sprinkle on top. That'll be lovely, right? It will be. Yeah. Maybe I'll make a couple deviled eggs to go with it. Ooh. Oh, cross, my hip really hurts. So, I was born with my legs severely externally rotated, my feet almost backwards. And I have, that's like a very short piriformis muscle, right? And so it had to be stretched out. And I have that pain across my hip. And I was watching a thing about trigger point release. I can't do that for myself. I can't. I need somebody to stick their thumb in my ass cheek. That's what I need. Yeah. It has to be stuck in the right place, right? It can't be just anywhere. It has to be right there at the base where the piriformis attaches onto the sacrum. Yeah, trigger point there. And that's supposed to release. He said the guy was super annoying. A doctor was super annoying to listen to, but I listened until he first he explained exactly what the piriformis was. I'm like, okay, if your piriformis fucking hurts, then you know what it is. I know what it is. What do I got to do? What I got to do? And I would watch for like 10 minutes before he finally said, oh, this is what you got to do. I'm like, oh, I can't do that for myself anyway, fucker. So I need someone to like stick their thumb right at the base of where my piriformis attaches onto my sacrum. And that's supposed to release the pain that's over my hip because it's a flexor, right? Oh, yeah. I was looking at some of the news headlines and stuff, and oh my God. Like, so yesterday, so France is pulling out of Niger. Um, it'll be interesting to see, if we get to hear any news from the people of Niger as opposed to the coup government, right? So the junta that took over, because all you hear a statement from the junta. It does not necessarily mean that it is. They don't necessarily speak on behalf of the people of Niger, right? The junta speaks on behalf of the junta. So you just got a group of people who wanted to take power, and so the news clips that I was watching, people were like surprised that France backed out so easily or whatever. But um, I watched Macron speak, and they had subtitles. You weren't really they didn't have his actual voice wasn't real loud. I mean, you could kind of hear it, but it was subtitled in English, so you knew it. So you knew what he was saying. But I was watching his mannerism, the way he was, his facial expressions and things while he was talking and while they were translating, and I really got the feeling from watching it that he was just like, "Fine, here, have it." I'm done with you. That was the attitude off of Macron. And so, it felt to me like he was saying to the people of Niger, okay, you don't want our help. We don't want to spend money on you anymore. And that's an interesting position, right? Um, you know, I think what will happen, all of that unrest right now across Central Africa has been largely instigated by Russia. And um European leaders are probably like, go ahead, see how you like Putin. Let's see how you like that, right? Meanwhile, I saw, the country of Georgia is like, Putin, stay the hell out. You know, People who have dealt with Russia for a long time and in a much more intimate way are just like, we don't want Russia in here. And so it's interesting. It's interesting. Yeah, it is. It's very, very interesting. And I'm glad I don't have children, right? I'm so glad I don't have children. Yeah. Oh, I saw a headline about Gavin Newsom signing some legislation making it mandatory for public schools to have gender neutral bathrooms. And there was some quotes from somebody who was a physical education teacher. And that's, I mean, it's just, think about back to being in school, I didn't I was uncomfortable changing around the girls. Um, I I got boobs and everything early, when I got my first training bra in second grade, and I was a year younger than all the other kids already. So it was like me getting a training bra in first grade, right? I was in second grade, but my age was like first grade age. Um, and so, for PE and stuff, I was always uncomfortable changing around because little girls were always like, oh, because I had boobs, and they all I looked like a tiny little woman, and they looked like children, right? And it was uncomfortable. It didn't matter who I was changing around. It was uncomfortable, and I didn't like it. It was awful. Um, because little girls' underwear looks different than women's underwear, right? you know, and there was always gossip and stuff, and so now you're adding this into the mix too, and it's just like, ugh. As far as bathrooms are concerned, you'd have to like knock down every building or rebuild everything. But, you know, single occupancy bathrooms, single occupancy bathrooms. What it's like, that's the way things should be done. You go into a stall, you go into a stall that where one person is, and the stalls, into those bathroom stalls, you're not seeing feet or anything. It's just like a little room. You go in, there's a toilet, and that's all it is, just that toilet, and then the sinks are all out in the open. So there's no opportunity, you see who goes into those. Could be kind of like being in a porta john, right? And all the sinks would be outside. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just glad I don't have kids. I have to worry about that. It's such a hard time growing up, and you have people with, I don't know. It's such a small amount of the population. Just glad I don't have kids. Just glad I don't have kids. Seems like a big distraction. Oh, why? When did the pendulum swing? Because it used to be, it was like all taboo when I was in school when I was a kid, that for anybody to talk about birth control, right? We're not allowed to even talk about condoms or anything. It's like you asked about a condom, and oh my God, you need counseling. It's like I asked about condoms in sex ed in 5th grade, and they called home and asked my parents why I was asking about condoms, you know, because there was commercial on TV, and I was curious, and my parents told me to ask in school sex ed anything I was uncomfortable asking them. And that's what I asked. I asked about condoms, and so, oh my god, they pitched a fit, and because I was young and had boobs, was more developed than the other girls, then, they're all like, "Oh, is Larissa having sex?" Oh my gosh, no. No, I was just asking a question. I was just asking a question, and that was like a big fucking deal, and now now, oh my god, what the hell has happened? Now it makes my condom question seem silly, huh? Now you can ask, "How do I get my dick cut off?" "I feel like a lady. I wanna wear a dress. How do I get my dick cut off?" And you can ask that. You can ask that, and no, and they can't tell your parents, but geez, I asked about condoms, and it was, like, crazy. Oh, world's nuts. The world's nuts. It really, really is. Yeah. And yesterday, I had my door open. I wasn't really open, but I had my door open. And these 3 girls come in. And one said she was a freshman at one of the local colleges or whatever, and she's studying fashion. I'm like, "Oh." She's like, "I wanna study I wanna do fashion sustainability." She's like, I do cactus leathers and things." I'm like, "Oh." Like, "Is that really sustainable? What is the longevity of those items? And, you know, what does it take to fabricate those items? And what's the carbon footprint of that?" And she's like, "Oh, you mean like the chemicals and stuff to make stuff like that?" I'm like, "Yeah, but not just that. It's like you have to have machinery to manufacture such materials, and you know, natural materials already exist that have longevity. You want to talk about sustainability, you want to talk about, quantity of, like, how much you're making and manufacture, right? What is the longevity of what is the longevity of your garment? And, you know, how often are you buying garments, right? You're still talking about the fashion industry, about designing for the seasons, right? Like fall season 2023, the clothes for that, right? It's like, well, then what happens in fall season 2024? Can't you still wear those clothes? It's that's what the issue is, right? Vanity, vanity is not sustainable. So anyway, yeah. But what do I know? Mm, What do I know? Did I see, like, some Chinese warship that was in Filipino waters, and that's just a try to frighten the Philippines and fuck with the US, right? Because of Guam. Mm. Yeah. Oh, uh, all I know is that I got some fun to work on today, and tonight I'm going to make mushroom barley soup to go with my rye bread.